Everyone, we'd like to welcome you to the Mesa City Council study session for the morning of Thursday, April the 22nd. Our council is all present with the exception of Mr. Thompson. He is in our thoughts and prayers this morning. He's had surgery yesterday, but I hear he's doing well and he'll be back. I think he's home either today or tomorrow, so all is going well, but we certainly wish him well and look forward to him returning to our council very shortly. The first item on our agenda today is to hear a presentation, discuss, and provide direction on updates to the city code related to a variety of specialty license and related fees. So we've been looking forward to this, as I know many people in the community. Thank you for the work you've been putting in on this topic. I know for probably a couple of years now.
Yes, good morning, Mayor and Council. Tim Meyer with Business Services. Yes, we have. So we've been spending a lot of time going through the codes and listening to the public and listening to some of their concerns. And I think we've made some really great changes to the code. So let's go and get that going. All right, so this morning we're going to go ahead and talk about some license updates. The update started back in 2020, and due to the COVID pandemic, we're just bringing them to the council now. On March 15th of 2021, we presented to the Audit, Finance, and Enterprise Committee, and they were given direction for us to come to the full council. Our goal is to introduce these codes on May 3rd and then have them up for consideration on May 17th. The first code we're going to talk about is the Mobile Food Vendor License Code. It's a brand new code. What we've done is we've actually pulled this out of the peddler code, because right now they're regulated by the peddler code, and we've made its own code, and I think we've really made some good improvements to help the food trucks get through the process a lot quicker and at less expense. So as I just said, we did remove it from the peddler code. Our main goal, obviously, is to protect the public health and safety. It's driven a lot by state legislation. The state has gotten involved in some of this. Right now, it's establishing minimum standards for the operators. They do need to have their state Department Health Services license. They need to have a state tax license. They're going to have to go through an annual fire inspection that we'll talk about in a little bit and how that's going to work. They do need to take and have some consideration for trash, litter, noise, lighting, and security. And we're taking into account pedestrian safety as well. Some of the highlights for the new license, we're going to take the background check from all employees just to the owner-operator. In the current code right now, one of the heartaches we've heard is that all of the employees in the truck have to go through a background check. That can take 6 to 8 weeks. And that's really cumbersome for them. So we've taken that out in this new code and just have the owner-operator have to go through the process. It does establish parking guidelines for city property and right-of-way and parking spaces. It establishes some insurance requirements. We put in some penalties and appeals process for non-compliance. It is consistent licensing guidelines for cities and towns. We did go through a kind of a model code that the cities tried to work with, so we're part of that. And the license fee is the same as they pay for the peddler now. So we just made the same, we're just recommending the same fee move over to this license from the peddler code, which is $100 per year. Any questions on that?
Yes, maybe before you move on to peddlers,
Sure.
the consistency was the thing that stood out to me, because I think all of us have heard, and I don't know if it's entirely true, but the rumor is that the Mesa's got a higher bar when it comes to food trucks, and and we've heard pushback, that why are you making it difficult for small business, and particularly during the pandemic. So I think this is, and I know that that's not entirely true, but certainly that perception is out there that Mesa is more difficult on this issue than other communities. So talk more about the consistency. The proposed changes to the ordinance would make us, would it be fair to say that it's uniform, perhaps throughout the valley or the East Valley, that we don't have different requirements than other cities?
Mayor and council members, it wouldn't be necessarily uniform, but we have looked at what other cities are doing, especially surrounding cities, and we are trying to make it fairly easy for them to understand our code and comparable to other cities. Every city has slightly different variations in their code, depending on the types of food trucks they have and events that they have. But I definitely would not say that ours is more cumbersome than other cities, and we're actually trying to make it easier and more clear for the food trucks to go through this process.
Okay. What would some of the distinctions be? Because I'm just thinking, food trucks, I'm sure they want to operate in multiple cities. And so the uniformity, I think, would be really a good idea in this situation. Were you about to say something? Mr.
Well, I was going to say, go back, if we go to, first of all, slide 4, all of those are established by the state. So everybody has to have those. Am I accurate in that?
So the state establishes what cities can or cannot do when they regulate food trucks. What the cities choose to do within that permission is up to them. But the annual fire inspection, that's consistent with cities. Your trash and litter, your noise, lighting, those type of regulations of just trying to keep general upkeep and pedestrian safety and things like that, those are all fairly consistent. Where cities differ somewhat is what zoning districts food trucks are allowed in. And that's one thing that we're updating in our code as well, to make clear that they can operate in residential areas if they meet certain exceptions, such as an ice cream truck, certain separation requirements between a residence and a home. And those are fairly consistent with the other cities as well.
Okay. Yeah, as I look at the requirements, I don't see anything on there that I find overly burdensome. They all seem
Right.
like good ideas, and I think historically, the chief complaint has come with this, we need a background check or a fingerprints on, every person, and that's been the barrier. Sometimes a truck would pull up to an event and oh, wait, this is Mesa, and,
Right.
I can't do this, but.
So Mayor, the biggest thing, I think, first of all, is we're creating a whole separate section for just mobile food trucks, where before it was
Part of the peddler
part
code.
of, so
Right.
we've separated those two, so that is distinctive. And I think the separation from residential, I wanted to make a point about that we felt like that was important because, on the other side of this, we do have we've gotten residential, some of the residents have weighed in on the location of food trucks. We have the issue sometimes of food trucks in front of brick and mortar shops. And so we're trying to balance all the interests of allowing those food trucks to have an opportunity to be in our community and be successful, but at the same time not infringing upon, a home that's right next to, how close can you be to a home, or even, setting up in the parking lot of another commercial entity. So we're trying to balance everybody's interest out, but allow them the opportunity to be successful. And I think we have. I mean, this started out, this is either a mobile food truck that's one food truck that sets up by Kirby's Furniture, and sets up there every weekend, or it's someone who shows up at the MAC and shows up with, a dozen food trucks, or Las Sendas or whatever. So we're trying to manage the whole range of, opportunities that might show up.
Well, so could you address the scenario that Mr. Brady raised a moment ago? Because I have heard there is tension between, a brick and mortar restaurant feeling compromised if a food truck pulls up in front of their restaurant, and starts undercutting them, as far as sales of food, and the brick and mortar guy is paying, a lot of, he has higher overhead than the guy who's got a truck. How does this impact that scenario?
So the food trucks will be able to park in city right-of-way as long as they're parking in a legal parking space and aren't impeding the flow of traffic. So if this is in an area where they are permitted to park like another car, they are allowed to be there. We can set certain time limit requirements if that was something council was interested in. Other cities do have that where you can only be in that area for 6 hours in a 24-hour period or something along those lines. There are also requirements that we could think about that you can't operate within 1,000 feet of the first place that you set up. So you'd have to move locations. You wouldn't just be able to move one spot over and continue operating for another 6 hours or whatever that time limit would be. So those are all options that we could think about.
But right now, there is no prohibition on where a food truck can
Well,
park.
if a food truck shows up in a private parking in front of in a strip mall, that's between them and the landlord of but if they pull
Yes.
up into a public right-of-way on the street,
Right, so if it's private property, you would need the private property owner approval to be there.
Okay. I
and that
think
would
that might be,
typically deal with most of those cases, we think, Mayor, especially in a strip center. But if it, I guess theoretically, a food truck could pull up right in front of any of our restaurants in downtown and park in the parking spaces right there.
Right.
yeah, and I'm not sure that's a bad idea, because I have heard that one of the questions about having like a downtown festival is we want food trucks to come and park, on the sidewalk, even if it is adjacent to a brick and mortar restaurant, because it's a festival environment, and the more food options, the better, right? But, so I'm not sure we need hard and fast rules, but I wonder to what extent we're gonna have difficulties if there is zero prohibition on a food truck competing with a brick and mortar restaurant.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of flexibility that gives them options. I think we see that most of success is when there's a group and there's an organized larger, and that can accommodate the parking, can accommodate the access to the power, like we did at Pioneer Park, and where you can bring in large groups of people to enjoy all of that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, and we all know there's an experience out there, is balancing that out with the impact it may have on the adjoining residents also. So we're trying to find a balance here.
And Mayor and Council, I should also say, and Sarah talked about some of the things that we could do. The state statute actually really limits the city's ability to prohibit us from having them park within legal parking spaces within the right-of-way. So that's where actually the state statute gets rather detailed in limiting municipalities. And so the ability to prohibit it was really what Sarah already told you. That was sort of the extent of the prohibitions that we can consider. And as you heard them, they're not very significant.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea that we're opening it up, and I would rather err on the side of less regulation, particularly given the reputation that we have, that we've been over-regulating this industry, and food trucks continue to be, very popular and add a lot to events, and so I like the direction we're going. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I know some of our restaurants in downtown once were food trucks and now they're brick and mortar, so it is a great way to kind of get your feet wet on that. But my question is, or maybe more of a statement, and I might be delving too much into code, is that a food truck just can't simply have the permission from a property owner if they were going to be like within their parking area. I think it has to be zoned in like a commercial, a certain type of zoning. It can't just be any business. It has to be a certain zoning. And so I'm putting that out there, and I wish I thought about it ahead of time. I would have, I know some kind of commercial zoning, but I don't remember the details.
Yes, Vice Mayor, a lot of cities require that, and that's what our code would be similar to as well. A general statement that you need the permission of the property owner as well as complying with the zoning ordinance.
Do you know what the zoning ordinance is? I mean, which zone?
Oh,
I'm not sure the exact,
Is the question that we allow food trucks in certain zones? Is that what we're talking about? I think that's something we have to come back and deal with, right? Because right now, we're just kind of we don't have a specific language about mobile food trucks in the zoning code, so we kind of use it more as an interpretation of like use. They're a restaurant, so would a restaurant be in that same kind of zoning that they're setting up in the parking lot for? I think that's what we're doing now. But that is something, now that we've done this, conversations between licensing and zoning, is we probably need to go back, or come back, we'll work on it, come back to council and say, okay, which zoning categories would we allow for food trucks in? And would they be similar to, like a small restaurant, and just say, okay, they're the similar thing, but we need to be more I guess, explicit, intentional in the zoning code to make that clear. Right now, I don't think there is a mention of that, that's my understanding, is, yeah. So I think something to work on and bring back. I think right now, we just try to interpret as like for like, you know, it's like a restaurant. If the restaurant would be allowed in that type of zoning, then we would allow it. If they're in the parking lot. Now, if they're in the right of way, that doesn't apply. Is that correct, Sarah?
Right, in the right-of-way, there's just certain parking regulations that we would have in this licensing code.
Right, and I realize we're just addressing the licensing aspect of it right now, and I don't want to delve too much into the code, but I would like to look at that eventually, because it has been a point of dispute as far as why is this food vendor allowed on this private
Okay.
property, a commercial, but not this commercial, and it's caused a lot of conflict
Yeah.
and confusion.
We need to address,
So
we
we'll
need to
look at
come back
that
with the zoning.
separately, but I just want to kind of establish that as something outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heredia?
Just a curious question. I'm assuming some folks don't have an actual like food truck or a vehicle. They have like a trailer. Are those be the same? They have to meet these requirements as well?
So that would be regulated more under the peddler code. The
Peddler
food
code.
truck is meant to encompass one vehicle that has the food preparation and everything contained within it.
Okay. Even if like they operate like a food truck, but it's not like a truck itself, but they have like a trailer that simulates okay.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Freeman?
Hi, Tim. I want to cherry pick one. The annual fire safety inspection, who administers that?
That's going to be through the fire departments. All we require is that they have an inspection through a fire department in the state of Arizona. So if you go to Gilbert and you get it passed in Gilbert, it's good in Mesa. If you come in Mesa, it's good in Gilbert. So the requirement is just one fire department once per year.
Okay.
And that's regulated by state
Yes.
statute.
Okay, good, because there was recently a mobile food truck fire, I believe, in Queen Creek, which exploded and blew up and hurt the occupants in the food truck. And,
Yeah.
and we don't want, I mean, that can happen, obviously, in accidents. So I'm just glad to see that I just didn't know who was administering the
It's
inspection.
actual fire department.
Okay, thanks.
I think we stopped you right as you were about to discuss peddlers.
Yes, sir.
Which and obviously is relevant to the scenario that Mr. Heredia described, where rather than a food truck, you have a food trailer. Would that be a peddler?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Please
Mayor.
continue.
Okay. All right, are we ready to move on to peddler? Great. So our main goal here again is health, safety, and welfare, and the peddler license is going to cover anyone who's going door to door selling a product or service. Those people we're going to require fingerprinting and background checks. One of the key things we're pulling out of the peddler code again is making every person that wants to be a peddler go through a full background check with fingerprints. We just figured that was very cumbersome. So just the people that are going to go door to door, we're going to require that now. So if you're going to set up on a corner or you're going to do something anywhere else in the city when you're not going door to door, where basically people are coming to you, we're not going to require the background check anymore. So again, that's going to make the process go much quicker. So that'll cut down 6 to 8 weeks of time to go through that. Who will not need a license for a peddler? It's the low-risk licensees. Anyone selling or taking orders on behalf of a nonprofit, including minors. Anyone participating in a licensed special event. Anyone selling only products grown by the seller or being sold on behalf of the producer. And anyone selling only handmade products at a craft fair. Licensed mobile food vendors will not, and any person already exempted from law. So this, again, is going to make it much easier for people that are not going to have to require a license that we do today. They're just not a high risk. So I think it's going to be very citizen-friendly.
All right.
guess that's it on
I'm
that.
sure we've got questions
Sure.
to the peddler. Mr. Luna.
Thank you, Mayor. Tim and you and I discussed this, I think, at the Audit and Finance. So if, especially in our Latino neighborhoods, we find, they're called paleteros, they sell popsicles.
Yes.
Will they be required to have a license?
Yes, Councilmember Luna, they will be required to have a peddler license as well. So basically, if you're going to sell something, you're going to need a peddler license. It's whether or not you're going through door to door, not whether or not you need the fingerprinting process.
Okay, then so how would we communicate that information to them? Are you going to travel around and say, hey, you're violating their code? Are you going to then educate them, and then how are you going to do that?
Yes, Councilmember Lunar, we'll post this on our website. we'll do all the outreach that we can to do that. And again, our goal is when we find vendors like this and our enforcement encounters these, we try to educate and we let them know what they need to do and how they need to do it. So it's education first and enforcement last. So
Okay.
we're really trying to make sure we get everybody educated in what they can do. And that's our policy today. So when we run into people that are not licensed, our whole goal is to try to get them licensed and explain the process.
And then I'm probably going to date myself because when I was a kid, remember Mr. Frosty? He would go down the neighborhood.
Yes.
Do we still have those? I mean, do they go into some of
Ice
the-
cream trucks.
Ice cream
Yeah,
trucks?
we do. Councilmember Luna, we do have those. They're very rare. I hear them every once in a while.
Yeah.
You'll drive around, all of a sudden you hear the little bell ringing. So, but they're not as popular as one back in our day.
Okay, okay. Thanks.
But to be clear, that would, if you're going door to door, that requires a peddler's license rather than a food truck license.
Yeah, so if you're going to go door to door, they're going to need a peddler's license for that.
But the ice cream truck that just travels through the neighborhood with the jingle going, is that a license, is that a peddler's license?
The ice cream truck would be regulated under the food truck ordinance.
Yes.
All right, I think, I'm anxious to hear the answer to Mr. Heredia's question here.
On the,
Well, I'm thinking the scenario you described earlier with the
Sure.
food trailer, like the carne asada
Yeah,
tent, you know, which, is that a fish or a fowl here? Which camp is it in?
So it depends on how we're going to define mobile food unit. The way it's defined in state statute would be that would be a food truck. Whether or not we want to include that in the definition is something that we need to consider because some cities only regulate the all-enclosed actual food truck that it can drive on a highway is how they define it.
Okay, so let's go back to in front of Kirby's Furniture, all right? We've got a tent, you know, that's got a cook trailer parked next to it, and it shows up
Yeah.
hypothetically.
There's hybrids there's gonna be hybrids out there all the time that we're gonna
Yeah.
have to work through, Mayor, because, you know, you have the big barbecue with the big barrel, he pulls up and he's got it smoking and he sets up for the weekend, right? And puts tables and chairs out in the parking lot. But it's not enclosed, it's, you know, it's got the big barbecue smoker, and then he's really just got, you know, a table and maybe, I don't know, just other things. I think in our mind, that doesn't sound, I mean, it doesn't really fit our enclosed definition. It's just someone showing up and kind of offering. And then you have the ice cream truck that's going through the neighborhood. Seems like it's more like the food truck than it's where it's kind of stationary and it's kind of people walking up to it. So I think that's, I don't know if I'm coming with the right legal definition, Sarah. But
And one of the important things we're trying to do is make these two codes consistent with each other so that the fees between a peddler and a mobile food truck are the same. Is that correct? And the licensing process, the application is very similar. The time frame it'll take to get licensed will be similar, so that there aren't huge different burdens on these different types of vendors.
Well, so the carne asada tent scenario, I think we have been accused of over-regulating that and of shutting down, you know, some scenarios that arguably we shouldn't have. So to me, all of the regulations that you put down under the food truck license, I support that. I do want them to have a fire extinguisher. I do want them to have a health, you know, inspection. But I also don't want to put them out of business. So to me, the mobile food truck license requirements seem consistent with a food tent.
But in either case, Mayor, I think the thing that has been the challenge is the consistency of the land use and where they're setting up. I mean, that's been our
Well, that's
conflict.
more of a zoning question than a licensing question.
I think the licensing, we're making it simple by removing the background checks, and the fees are the same, so that does, it's not the fee. And I don't know that, it's just really just putting in the definition whether mobile or stationary, but otherwise, we're not there's not, I don't think there's a tremendous amount of difference in the licensing part of it. It's more about it's more, I think when you're a mobile truck, there's more like the fire inspection, like the other things that are being looked at.
Yeah.
But I think the challenge has been in the past with the conflict, and they talk about being overly burdensome, you're gonna have it in any city. It's the consistency of that land use where they've decided to set up. Is it consistent?
Well, I agree. We can talk about the zoning issue separate from the licensing issue. But to me, I don't see much of a distinction between a food trailer and a food truck. Because they're both mobile, they both set up, and then you go there and you eat, and I don't see a huge, I don't think they necessarily ought to be regulated in a different way. So I would argue that we ought to include food trailers, mobile food enterprises, under a single ordinance.
Would you say that the mobile is more extensive in the regulation than the peddler, or vice versa? What's the difference? For if I'm to the mayor's point, for that carne asada, what would be different for mobile versus being a peddler? What would they have to do differently?
The fire requirement is one, insurance requirements is another, and the parking regulations are slightly different as well.
I think they would like to stay a peddler, Mayor.
I was gonna say, I just butted in, am I allowed to do that? The peddler doesn't need the background check, and the food truck does for the owner, so that's a big difference to me.
I think it would be, I think I would try to stay as much a peddler before I became a mobile food truck, I think.
Okay, well, then I take back what I said, because
Yeah.
the
I think, I was worried you were pushing them into
well,
the mobile
the
food
stigma
truck.
attached to, I keep hearing, oh, your peddler license is overly burdensome.
It is for
I
a
was
mobile
thinking we
food
were trying to
truck
get out
today,
from underneath
and that's why
that.
we're trying to pull them out.
Yes,
Okay.
and Mayor?
So, but I just think it needs to be uniform, frankly. I mean, if you're in the business of making and selling food at mobile locations, I do want you to have a health, inspection, and I do want you to have a fire extinguisher, because, well, for obvious reasons. So, that's my 2 cents here.
Thank you. And those are certainly things we can consider putting into the peddler
But
code.
we'd be adding to, Mayor, it would be more regulation than exists today.
Well, and again, the point, I didn't want to add more regulation.
That's
But
why
on the
it's
other
so
hand, though, I think those two things are important. I don't want to have a carne asada trailer fire, and people said, yeah, maybe we should have brought a fire extinguisher. I'm sorry, but next time we'll do that. It's probably a good idea to think about that beforehand. Right?
Yeah, no.
All right, well, yeah, so what we're doing now, I guess we can, are there more questions here, Mr. Freeman? Did you have something?
Well, I think a perfect example of what you're talking about is most of us took a tour of the Dobson Ranch Golf Course. And when we were there, they have a mobile trailer, food trailer, that's completely self-contained. Everything you just hook up to your tractor and you can haul it to wherever you want. So, I mean, it's really not a whole lot different than a mobile food truck in essence. So I'm kind of leaning on your side on this conversation, but yet maybe that should be talked about more, whether it's a peddler license or a mobile food truck.
Yeah, I don't see the need to draw a huge distinction between a trailer and a truck when it comes, because I think that what they're doing is pretty similar. And again, I don't want it to be overly regulated. I just want there to be 2 or 3 boxes that we check before we say, yeah, go make some carne asada and earn a living for your family. So, so right now, we are treating food trailers differently than we're treating food trucks. And I just need someone to articulate to me why we're doing it that way.
I think, Mayor, we tried to be very simplified in this, and I think Sarah talked about kind of this, the mobile food trucks become distinctive because they're like this enclosed, intact unit that can move on the streets and set up, by itself. And maybe the trailers, we didn't think, they don't kind of fit in that, we're just trying to simplify it. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think when you become the mobile food truck, because you're on the road, you could be in the right of way. I don't know that you're going to set up a carne asada in the right of way. So we were trying to make that distinction, at the same time helping all of them, by helping the food trucks get away from the background checks, but keeping in place the insurance requirements, the fire safety that are there.
Well, I know some people that are in the food trailer business, some old law clients or whatever, and they say, yeah, I love to barbecue, and I want to come to be part of food truck events. And so I want to, pay my $25 or whatever and park next to the food truck, but I'm not a food truck, I'm a food trailer. So it doesn't seem like we ought to have different licenses particularly if they're side by side and they're essentially doing the same thing. So, and again, I'm not arguing for more regulation. I also am sensitive to the fact that a year or two ago, we had several carne asada tents that ran afoul, of city regulation and moved on, and I'm not a fan of what happened there. I would like it to be more lax so that we can have more of that. So, that was more of a zoning code than a licensing issue.
It goes back
Yeah.
to zoning, not the.
Yeah. Well, so thanks. I know that we're not voting on this today. We're giving you some feedback. So I guess when it comes back, if we can reconcile, whether or not we're going to treat a food trailer differently than a food truck, I just need to understand that a little better. Mr. Heredia.
Yeah, going back to the enforcement, is this code enforcement, or are we talking about PD, or they're gonna track these peddlers, or what's the enforcement? Who's doing the enforcement in the city?
Mayor, Councilmember Heredia, it's a group effort. Actually, I have I have licensing enforcement in my staff that goes around and checks. And then we also get code enforcement and PD involved as well, if we think there's going to be more of an enforcement issue. So normally, the licensing enforcement group will go out and do what they can, get them educated, get them licensed and so forth. If we know we have repeat offenders and we've got violators out, then we ask code enforcement and PD to come along to step up the enforcement a little bit and make more of a presence on that. And then that usually corrects the problem.
Okay. And then is there like a ID that we issue for peddlers, or a certification, or that they have to carry around? Is that some requirement that they have to have while going door to door?
Mayor, Councilmember Heredia, they are required to have their peddler license with them. So if they're going to peddle, they've got to have their license on them. We considered cards at one point in time. It's just the expense and extra burden, again, to pass along to do that. But we just figured that they could just take their license along with them. So it's a small license. They can just fold it up in their pocket or put it in a nice envelope or something. But they are required to have that with them, whether they're going door to door or they're selling on the corners. They'll have to have that to present to us.
For each person that's going door to door, or would that just the top person that's got the license? Are we asking folks that go door to, each person that goes door to door, to have some sort of number or
Yes.
certification? Yeah.
Yes, Councilmember Heredia, we are requiring all peddlers their license on an individual basis, and they each need a license with them.
Okay.
But again, we've limited that, who actually has to get a peddler's license. It's going door to door. It's not, the Girl Scout cookies
Yeah.
doesn't have to do that. So it's someone who's for profit, probably, I guess.
So the distinction is that if you're going door to door, you'll need to get fingerprinted. But if you're soliciting or peddling, even not going door to door, you still need a license.
Just not a background check.
Okay.
Next question, the farmer's market scenario. I know that the zoning issue is a separate set of requirements, but as I understand it, if you grow your own produce, you're a peddler, or you're exempt from the peddler's license?
That's right, yes,
All
you
right.
would be exempt, Mayor.
If you make your own handcrafts, you're exempt from the peddler's license. But if you're selling something that somebody else grew or somebody else made, then you need a peddler's license to participate in a farmer's market.
So, Mayor, a farmer's market would fall under our special event license, and if you're participating in a special event, you wouldn't need your peddler license on top of that. You just need to be part of the special event and listed on their vendor list that they submit.
Okay. So I guess the scenario that the peddler's license would apply is if you just are
On your own.
offering things for sale in your front yard or in a place that someone has said, sure, go ahead and set up a tent there and sell your handmade or homegrown produce.
Well, they wouldn't if it's handmade or homegrown. They
Correct.
wouldn't need.
They would not need, yeah,
Right.
they don't need any
If
type
they're
of a license.
reselling
Yeah.
something, I don't know,
Right.
not that they made, then they, yes.
So let's talk about like it's Valentine's Day or it's, things pop up on the corners, right?
Hey, Frank's
Yes.
here. Let's talk about Mylar balloons. That's his
Mylar
favorite.
balloons. Okay. Well, yeah, not Mylar, but let's talk about, I want to sell, flowers for the day before Mother's Day. how does that apply to any of these scenarios? And it's assumed that we're not raising the flowers on our own piece of property.
Mayor, you would need a peddler license for that,
Okay.
yes.
That's a good example, though, Mayor. That was actually, that's our distinction.
All right. Thank you. I know, I'm sorry, we stopped you again in
No, we're good.
presentation, so keep going.
All right, the special event license. Currently, that applies to any event that requires a temporary exemption from the zoning code, so I always like to use that as the ground floor. If you want to do something that zoning doesn't allow you to do, you need to get a special event license, and that gives you a temporary use to do so. Generally, it takes 14 to 60 days to get approved, depending on the size and complexity. So again, if it's just something easy that we're going to do, you can get that done relatively quick. If you're going to run a marathon through Mesa, that takes a while. So we have a lot of departments that need to sign off on that. Well, it's going to be one basic application that has attachments for the specific variations. Again, the nice thing with that is you don't have to fill out everything if you're not doing all of the pieces. So what we did is we took the core business and we could put that into our main application. And then as you do different things like set up stages, have carnivals and so forth, you need to have special things filled out on special forms for that. So it makes it more easy for those that are doing the smaller events not to have to fill out such a large application. The current fee right now for any size event is $100 a day with a maximum of 4 days and a maximum of $300 for the event.
And those days don't have to be,
They do have to be contiguous.
they have to.
Yes. The proposed changes, we're going to establish a license for small-scale events. That's something we don't have right now, and that's one of the biggest complaints I've gotten so far is that all I want to do is set up a tent, or not a tent, a canopy and a table and chairs and a parking space, and they've got to go through this big, long process to do that. We're going to try to make this process much quicker and easier for them to do that. We have a lot of people that are just setting up small things in parking lots, so we've heard a lot of public feedback on wanting to have that, and we're going to put that in this code. And again, and then we're going to have a much reduced fee as well for that. So you'll have $50 for the small scale event. You can do that for up to 4 days. So instead of spending $300 on that, you're only going to spend $50 on that. That's what we're proposing. Establish an expedited application review process and a fee. Applications that are submitted less than 14 days prior to a small event and 30 days prior to a large event and 60 days prior to those that have street closures are going to fall into the expedited requirements. Those take a long time to get through, and if they don't give us those timeframes, we have to put everybody else on hold and try to push them through. So we're gonna establish a policy to do that, but they'll have to pay a fee to go along with that. And that'll be a 50% additional fee is what we're proposing. And then one license for multiple events is something that we're trying to do. We've got some downtown, is really where they started with those, is where they're doing the same event week after week after week. So we're gonna streamline that process so they don't have to go through all the different application processes. They can just copy their applications, and then we'll have one fee and let them all submit that at one time.
Mr. Luna.
Thank you, Mayor. So, in District 5, we have Food Truck Fridays at Las Sendas, at the beginning of each month. But they've had to move locations because the city is requiring them to do that. Why is that? Why can't they just do it, if they're gonna have 6 events per year or even 8 events per year? Why do they are they limited to only 4? Why can't they just go through the whole year without?
Mayor, Councilmember Luna, that's a zoning question. So zoning will control that. So if they're going to if you want to make changes with that, that's something that'll have to be discussed when you discuss your zoning changes. The zoning code regulates that at this point in time. The special event license just gives you permission to do that outside of the zoning code when it's not allowed. So the number is controlled by zoning.
It could become 365, and then what? So you got to figure out a number. And
Yes.
Because it's a special event.
Yeah.
But maybe there is like no more, we could work through a formula, but I don't know what the
Yeah.
logic was before, but
Right.
you can see at some point it gets too many, then it becomes,
Yeah.
it's like, well, then you should go through the zoning change. You should actually,
It's typically, maybe at the most, it's gonna be 8 events a year.
right, so maybe there's some adjustment, and so that gives us an opportunity to think about making those kind of adjustments.
Okay.
Because, yeah, that's an exception. When we think of special events typically,
Yeah.
right, it's an annual event, or it's maybe a couple times a year or something like that.
So are we going to consider the question of whether or not
We need to
want
bring,
allow
obviously,
more?
the zoning, we need to have that conversation, yeah. But then I will tell you that it works there, but you have to think about how does it apply all around the city? Is that,
Yeah.
I
No,
agree, and maybe we just got to figure out how we come up with that exception, how
Yeah.
we allow for that without imposing a burden in other areas where someone would go, okay, I can handle that once a year, but I don't want a marathon every month.
Right. Well, it just becomes, it's quite restrictive because then
No,
we have to change, we have to go to another park because we're limited to where we can hold the event.
Right,
So
well,
It would
and
be nice to get.
it's nice when they can find a location that works well, right, with all the parking and people coming in and out, and we kind of want to encourage
Right.
the use of that same location,
Yeah.
yeah.
And as you know, food truck events are very popular and it's
Right.
very popular.
We've heard, yes, so. it's
We
very
get
exciting.
thousands of people, and it's like what Jen was saying, the whole idea was to bring food trucks to encourage more
Right.
restaurants in the area. And it's obviously worked in downtown areas, so this is something we want to do in District 5. But that becomes problematic.
And Mayor and Councilmember Luna, just at this time too, there is a process in place called the special use permit, so you can go through that process. It's a little time-consuming to do that, but then you can apply to have more exemptions, and you can have more events. We have a couple places like that right now. Mesa Community College has one, I know for sure, and the Fiesta Mall area over there's got one as well. So you can go through that process, and you can get, I think some of them have like 16 that were approved. So there's a process in place that you can get more.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So when someone applies for their license, do we at the same time issue the guidelines, the code guidelines, or they just have to go on their own investigation? It would be nice, I would like to suggest, if we don't, to also, when we have the license, and here are your zoning guidelines along with this, so there's no misunderstandings as far as
Mayor and
where
Vice
they're allowed
Mayor
to operate.
Duff, when they do apply for the license, we're trying to go paperless, so we do give them the code to go look at as far as the peddler code is required, or the special event license. But as far as the zoning, yes, we can do that. I don't think my office is handing that out right now, so we can certainly do that and reference them to the zoning code. That would probably be a good suggestion.
I think that would be good because we've had so many instances where they're licensed, but they don't understand that where they were operating wasn't allowed. And so it's created a lot of confusion. So I think it would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, let's see. The proposed changes to the code, we're going to require a complete vendor list to be submitted prior to the event and updated after the event. We're going to expand the reasons to deny or revoke a license. One of the key things that we found in the special event license is bad operators, and right now we don't have a lot of teeth in there to not issue licenses if they're not going to comply with our request to improve their special events. So we're going to put some verbiage in the code for that. And that's basically it on our license presentation today.
Great, thank you. So just to
Oh.
Just to reiterate, this is a work in progress. This is at some point going to come back to us as an ordinance or as
Yeah,
modification?
what did you say, May, the
Yes,
introduction?
yes, we're going to introduce in May. I believe the 3rd is what we're going to hope to do, so.
Okay. Well, we did raise some questions, so I guess I
Yes.
just need to know more before I vote in May, particularly on this ambiguity over
Sure.
a food trailer versus a food truck. And if there's a reason to regulate them differently, then I'm fine with that, but it's not obvious to me that there is. Vice Mayor.
Would it be possible to have a zoning review? So just to have a more overarching information before we decide on this? So if there was a differentiation, how we were going to treat it on zoning, that it would apply to, just to have more
Well-
uniformity? No?
Well, no, we agree that we do need to revisit the zoning code and be more explicit about that these are allowed. Right now, it's silent, is that, or?
That's not
Well, Donna's not here. But what we need to come back to the whole zoning process to amend the zoning code to clarify where this is. It's not just a informational, it is, and so this has raised the issue that we do need to come back and update the code to speak to where these food trucks would be allowed, which zoning codes they'd be allowed into.
Okay, so before we decide on the licensing, will we have an opportunity to review that code? I don't know, I
Well,
don't know.
reviewing the code and making changes will take months.
A long process.
Yeah,
Okay.
just because we usually typically come to council, we talk about what the code might look, the changes might look like, then we have to go to P and Z, they have to have their process, then we come back to council. So
Okay.
I think we are going to be bringing that forward, because you're right. I think to the point, that seems to be the biggest conflict right now. Obviously, whether it's food trucks or peddlers, where they're locating, and that conflict with the zoning code becomes a challenge. And so we want to be clear about that, and we need to go into the zoning code and make that, those changes.
Okay, so at this point, we have some time to think about how we're going to treat a food truck versus a food cart versus a food trailer, and maybe get some input from the public and look at that further before we decide with that division. And I appreciate the differences in the licensing, so there's a lot of information there, as the mayor had mentioned, and wanting to make sure that we're safe and not over-regulate.
I would say this about what we're bringing to council, is this making it easier? If we need to be more, if we need to spend time even after we adopt, I think we're kind of anxious to get it done, because some of the complaints we are getting about the burden of doing the fingerprinting, the background checks, we'd like to get that eliminated, and that's what this code's doing, and clarifying some of those other issues and making that distinction. We can always keep coming back and modifying this, but we just, and I'd hate to wait until we figured out the whole zoning, because then that could be months. I think what we are trying to respond to the industry and some of the questions that have come up with these changes. That doesn't mean it's perfect, and maybe there'll be some tweaks as along the way. Maybe, like as the mayor's trying to distinguish between, the trailers and the mobile food trucks, and then we can kind of get into the areas where they can be used. I think everybody would agree that what we're proposing here is more business friendly to the trucks than what we currently have, because currently they just got placed into,
Right.
when we didn't know when mobile food trucks were showing up, we just put them in the peddlers section. And now we realize that doesn't fit very well, so now we're trying to create something separate. But we can keep coming back and changing it. We were just hoping to get this done so we can kind of make it easier for them going forward.
And I'll just put it out there, if even making, I don't want to complicate matters, but making the differentiation, if you're cooking a food versus if you're selling ice cream, I think there's a whole another set of safety standards, to have the fire safety inspection and such. I'm just putting it out there as a consideration, because not all food carts I consider high liability. They're pretty simple, but some of them, if they're, or a trailer, which are almost exactly like a truck, except they're pulling it instead of driving it. Not within food trucks itself, but the differentiation between if we need to have any fire safety standards. Just to make it more complicated.
Yeah.
Well, we're
I
trying to
agree.
make it simple.
We don't necessarily need a fire extinguisher if you're an ice cream salesman.
I hope
I
not.
get that. All right.
I guess it just depends on whether that cooling system overheats or
Oh,
not.
yeah. Could be hot fudge involved too, so you never. Well, thank you. I think we appreciate the work on this. I think, and I agree with you, Mr. Brady. Let's make changes as soon as we can, but to the point, we don't help people if we say, no, you can do it, here's your license, but you still can't do it because of the zoning requirements. Or, I mean, we need to have.
We need to work through that too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation and for working on that.
Yes.
Not quite.
Mary,
One more.
then we
Oh,
got
not
one
done.
left.
Sorry,
Yes.
I
This is the
apologize.
build-up to the big one.
See all
This
the
is the
people
build-up,
sitting
yes.
behind you that are anxious to
I
do their
know.
presentation.
This is the build-up. This is the build-up.
So Mayor and Council, the next item we're going to talk about, and the last one for us, is the business license. Right now, the cities that have a business license, you can see on the screen, I won't read them all. There's 3 that currently do not. It's Phoenix, Tempe, and Mesa. The main reason for a business license, again, is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens, to share information with the entities such as Economic Development and the Chamber of Commerce, contact information for the city programs, clustering of like businesses, helping businesses do business in Mesa, and then identifying service businesses, home-based businesses, and taxable businesses currently in Mesa right now. And we do have a letter of support from the Mesa Chamber of Commerce as well. Business licenses current TPT licenses, which is our tax licenses, we currently have about 10,000 of those in the city right now. We're estimating that there's going to be between 5,000 and 10,000 non-taxable service businesses that are not licensed right now. So we're looking at approximately 15,000 to 20,000 new business licenses if we move forward with this license. Who would need a business license? It would basically be all taxable businesses, service businesses, and home-based businesses. Who would not need a business license? Businesses that are not located in Mesa, government agencies, religious, veterans, civic service, and nonprofits. Schools would not need one. Taxis, livery vehicles, limousine service, babysitting, and mobile food vendors, peddlers, and solicitors would not need a business license. Who specifically called out in state statute? Anyone that's out of state, food producers, residential rental properties and property owners, and insurance agents.
I'm sorry, they do need or
Would
don't
not.
They
need?
do not.
Do not
They
need,
do
okay.
not need, correct. We're recommending, if we move forward with this license, that we would need 2 new FTEs to administer the program. That's at a cost of about $141,000. This was pretty much the same amount of people that we had when we gave the tax licensing to the state. We gave up 2 positions. Getting this back would be about the same amount of work again, so we're asking for the 2 to be reinstated. And build a business license record type, we're going to need to do that in our system. That's going to cost us about $20,000 to build that and be able to manage that through our licensing system. Staff proposal, implement an annual business license. The application fee that we're recommending at this time is $10 and an annual renewal fee of $25. As you can see on the screen here, this is how the licenses, the fees are now divvied out through the cities locally. This is how we would stack up against them if we do a $10 license and a $25 license renewal at this point in time. And again, if failure to acquire a license, we're proposing a late fee and monetary penalties. We're not proposing any kind of a criminal penalty. Tasks ahead, if we're asked to move forward, is to finalize the code and the ordinance. We need to post the 60-day fee public notice. We'll need to see if we can get the ordinance to council in the fall. Building business license in Acela, that's the system that we need to put the license in. We need to hire our staff, and we'll have to have public outreach. The direction we're requesting today is to move forward with the business license and the related fees. And that's the end of that presentation.
Thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
Okay, a couple of questions,
Sure.
thank you. Would this be for all existing businesses or just new ones going forward? We're trying to get everyone that's currently in the city, correct?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Spilsbury, this would be for all of them right now. There's the data that we're collecting today, we can't use for any of these purposes. The tax code restricts that. So this would be a way for us to get the information we need to provide all that valuable information to our economic department and all the citizens that would like to know about businesses and clustering of businesses and where would be a good place for them to put their business.
Okay, and so in order to have a business registry, this is really the way to do it, is to have them register and get a license with the city.
Yes.
There's really no other way to do that, right? I mean, is that why we don't have a current business registry? Because we
Right.
haven't been making them get a license?
Oh, right.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's a license registry. We just don't have, it's the same concept,
Right.
yes.
Because I do really like the idea, obviously, I've brought it up a few times, of having a business registry so that we can help and support the
Yes.
businesses, not because we're trying to make a bunch of money, obviously, so.
Well, that's why you're correct, and that's why you can see we're at the very low end. And we did that on purpose because, one, we want to try to recover the cost it's going to require us to administer the program. We think this will be close to getting there, but we also didn't want to start off too high because we didn't want the dollars to be the barrier to getting people to register. And then we'll watch it over time and just see what that demand is on staffing. But right now, we really just wanted to start off low bar on that side and encourage people to register with the city.
Okay, and how much time would a business have to register then with the city? Once
How do
they-
we start out, Tim?
Right, no, well, a lot of outreach, and again, I think it's going to take us a year or more probably to get everybody up and running on it, so I mean.
Okay, so it's not like in 60 days you have to register?
No, we're not going to have the penalties right off the bat either with that. Right now, we just want to educate and try to collect the data and get everybody on board, so we'll give them plenty of time to get on board.
Okay, I think if we just communicate that really well of why we want to do this instead of that we're trying to control them more, because, that's what everyone's afraid of right now, so.
Yep.
I think the communication will be key on that.
Thank you, and I think the chamber is more than willing to help us kind of send that message out too, so.
Yes.
Mr. Luna.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you for doing this. This is something that I wanted to happen a long time ago, and I appreciate that the chamber coming forward wanting to do this, because we really need to know what businesses we have in our community, so this is a great idea. So maybe you might want to work with the chamber, try to encourage people to sign up and create some kind of incentives. Hey, if you sign up for this, the chamber's really good about providing some kind of incentives.
Sure.
But I think this is a good idea in terms of what businesses are out there, because if we're working with economic development and we want to work with, we want to help our businesses, this is a way to determine what businesses are in our community. So thank you for doing this. And I appreciate that there's not going to be a burden placed on them. We're not going to fine them, or we're not going to do anything that's going to be a burden to those businesses that are out there. So any businesses out there, please sign up. This is going to be a great program, and I know this is something that the whole idea is to see how the city of Mesa can provide opportunities for you as well. So it's a symbiotic relationship between you and the city of Mesa.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
I agree. I think we need to really promote the benefits of this. Otherwise, they just think it's burdensome and something they don't need to do. But it is, a benefit both ways. What kind of information are you going to require on the application? Of course, contact information, a classification of businesses, I assume. Any other information?
Number of employees, our whole goal is to keep the application very small as well too, so again, not cumbersome, but we'll work with our economic development and our Chamber of Commerce and see what kind of information they would like to have, and our goal is to keep it at 1 page or less and get the needed information that will help everyone.
And I think by having the database, and Jim was correct, and we've all thought this, if we had this database during CARES, we could have been able to send something out and say, hey, and I think we could use that as a record to be able to notify businesses about things that are happening in the city and what's going on. So it'll be an opportunity for us to be connected. And then, I think our goal is to try to keep the burden of the application low, but then maybe have opportunities to follow up with surveys and, solicit information from the businesses in the future to make sure we're understanding how we can better serve them.
Great. I do like it for the reasons that we mentioned, but also in our economic development team, we're taking on a support system of workshops and all kinds of online things and outreach and supporting, I assume, the majority of our businesses in Mesa are small businesses. Sure. So by having this new program that we're targeting small businesses to make them more resilient and help them grow, at least we'll have a way to reach them, which was the challenge during CARES. And so I think it's something we can make all our businesses stronger and attract more businesses when we have databases to know what we're doing in Mesa. And so I think it's great. Thank you.
Mr. Heredia.
I might have missed this, but what's the tool that the businesses can apply for this fee or pay for this fee? Is it the Diamond system that we have currently, or is it another system that we?
I'm sorry. Yes, Councilmember Hurdy, it'll go through the Acela system, so Dime system.
Okay.
So the good news is they go through the same entry into the system that they would do for permits
and everything
or
else.
other things for the city. Yeah.
Yep.
Is there, as a small business, I lease a space here in West Mesa, just making it a bit user-friendly, a bit more user-friendly, because even for me, it's a little, like, to pay for my fire inspection fee that I receive, it just took me like 10 minutes to find how to pay for it or search the record number. Okay. And so it's just, I would see issues with folks that haven't used the system as much, that it would be cumbersome to
We can work with our vendor. We
that
can try to
piece.
work with our vendor on, see what we can make it more intuitive. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to use the same system so that
Sure.
if you get a permit, your information may already be in the system, and so it'll make it easier to update for a lot of other reasons too. Like, one you gave is a perfect example. The whole fire inspection fee is really a key part of that.
I don't know, just like different tools to maybe search different areas, like
Okay.
different numbers that you get as far as a record number, or it was harder. It was hard to search for those. And if I'm having issue as a council member, I would I'm sure other
Okay.
folks have.
Thank you for that
issue with
feedback.
Yeah.
Mr. Luna?
Tim, I also want to encourage you to work with the East Valley Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. There's
Yes.
a lot of Latino-owned businesses that may not have the language and not know that this is available to them. So please do that. Make sure your materials are also in Spanish.
Yes.
I know Jay O'Donnell did a fantastic job during pandemic last summer, reaching out to many of our small businesses. And then, of course, Cahoots in partnership through the hub. That's another avenue that we know that could provide us contact with some of these small businesses. So please make sure you work with them as well.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, amen, I agree with the comments that have been expressed so far. It seems like having operated a small business in Mesa for many years as well, sometimes businesses, maybe you miss the first notice that, hey, your license expired, and then all of a sudden, you owe more in penalties than you owe in the initial application. So when we talk about penalties for failing to renew, I just think the point is we're trying to keep these fees so low that nobody suspects that we're doing this to raise revenue. Right. The reason we're doing this is to provide a service to the business community, not to milk them, as the government. So I think we just need to err on the side of having these fees and penalties being obviously very low and not driven by any kind of motivation to raise revenue. So I'd love to see what the penalties are before we approve it. And I think we need to collect some data on these applications. How do we know, how to serve these businesses? And if we could put them in some categories and I think hopefully we will at the business or the economic development office have staff people that are dedicated to sending out emails so that we can support the tech assistance programs and all of but there needs to be a why attached to this. Someone needs to say, you're forcing me to give you $25 a year. What do I get out of it? Well, you're going to get a lot out of it. We're going to give you some real opportunities to be a better business person. So we have to deliver some sort of there needs to be a deliverable, not just because we're the government and we want your $25. But I do endorse this and agree with all the comments that my colleagues have shared with you. Thank you. Are you done now?
We're done.
Okay. Sarah, Jim, thank you very much.
Thank you.
A lot of hard work went into that. Thank you. Next, we will hear, we'll continue with our getting updated on our budget presentations from the various departments. Mr. Brady, are you sure you want to start with energy resources, or should we move them to the back and just?
I really would like to go with
Okay, great. Energy resources, welcome.
This better be good.
The anticipation is just.
That's right.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I might be a little bit distracted after hearing about Mylar balloons, carne asada, and barbecue. I just made a trip to Austin, Texas for my best friend's birthday, and he's become a vegetarian, so I didn't have any barbecue that entire trip. So if I'm a little distracted this morning, if I lose my focus, please understand. So. To clearly indicate my appreciation for being first on the agenda this morning and not getting another reschedule, we're going to be brief, but if there's any questions that come up, please let us know. So again, I'm Frank McRae. I'm the Energy Resources Department Director. With me here today at the table is John Petroff, who's our Senior Fiscal Analyst, and Tony Cadorn, who's our Energy Resources Program Manager. We also have Kyle Nicholson, who's our Electric Systems Superintendent, and Harry Jones, who's our interim gas deputy director on our staff. So with that, I'll just mention, please go back. So just highlight safety, reliability, and efficiency. Those are our cornerstones of what we do. They're inherent and embedded in how we administer our budgets, what we look to spend money on, what we invest in. They're part of our mission statements. That's what we focus on. So, our personnel-related costs, excluding the power supply cost, are about 75% of our total budget. The other primary category of our costs that we spend money on is related to other services, professional services such as certification of our gas welders, tree trimming service contracts to keep trees out of our power lines, et cetera. So COVID, as it has done across the city, has really challenged our department. One of the things we've really focused on at the start of COVID was finding ways to keep our employees safe. A lot of our employees engage and interact with customers and contractors. So we really appreciate the city's support of finding us the personal protective equipment to keep our employees safe during that period of time. So done a good job. And so while the challenges have been significant, I think you can be proud that your Energy Resources Department has kept the reliability and safety and efficiency of our service at a high level. So go ahead, next slide. So we've been in the business since 1917. So we celebrated our 100th anniversary 4 years ago. And so that was a lot of fun. We are members of the American Public Power Association and the American Public Gas Association. And so one of the benefits of those memberships is we get to submit data and information after our analysis. We submit that information, we get to compare ourselves to our peers in the publicly owned energy utility industry. And you can see some of the awards and recognitions we've won through that process. So we're pretty proud of what we've accomplished there. So this next slide, I'll turn it over to Tony Cadorn. It's talking about how we meet our customers' electric energy requirements.
Thank you.
Hey, Frank,
I'm sorry,
Frank, I
Tony,
just-
before you start, Mr. Freeman.
Yeah, I just want to say congrats on the Excellence Award for the APPA. I know that's an outstanding award that's given annually, so thanks for getting that for utility.
And while you say that, I also want to mention that our department does not do that alone. We get a lot of support from the engineering department, water resources, personnel and HR, legal as well. And so it's an award on behalf of the city.
Yeah, if we were having an in-person conference, you guys would be up front, and that would be a really great honor. Thanks.
Great. So I just want to reiterate and highlight that we do not get our power from SRP. We purchase our power on the wholesale energy market. About 20% of our power comes from renewable resources, the majority of which come from dams along the Colorado River, and a small portion of that coming from solar panels on our customers' roofs. The remainder of our portfolio is through long-term contracts, 1 to 5 years, with energy wholesalers. And whatever they don't provide between those 5 long-term contracts, we have Western Area Power Administration purchase on our behalf.
John Petroff is going to address the next slide, which is our first request for any significant budget improvements that are personnel related in several years.
Good morning. So we've requested to add 2 gas crews, so that's 6 full-time positions, and they're going to assist with service installations predominantly in our Magma gas service area. Most of their work will be focused on capital projects, as I mentioned, with service installations.
That has to do with the growth, right? The continued growth we're seeing out there.
Continued growth, yes. We're anticipating net annual savings with utilizing these city crews over contractors and a reduction in overtime of just under $1 million at about $989,000 a year. And adding these positions should have a positive impact on the 2 performance measures listed on the slide.
Tony's going to look at slides 5 and 6, which is a historical and near-term projection of how our customer counts have grown and how their consumption in our billing system has also changed over time.
Sure. So what you're looking at here are 3 things. The top 2 lines are average customer counts by fiscal year, actuals and projected. Prior to the recession, we had over 17,000 or close to 17,000 electric customers, and that through the 07-08 recession actually dipped to below 15,000 to just over 14,000 customers. We've since seen those return. Last month, we posted 17,470 customers. But one thing to note is the sales across the bottom, that's the bar chart. We did peak nearly at 374 million kilowatt hours of sales prior to the recession. With the recession, that fell precipitously to about 313 million, and it's been slow to return. We've just seen more efficient customers using less energy. So we're projecting a steady growth to continue with all the development downtown, but we're not projecting as aggressive a growth in the sales as we are in our customer numbers.
I'm sorry, can you, it's not intuitive that we have more customers than we used to, but we're providing less utility. So is that more energy efficient appliances, or what's the cause for that?
Yeah, we think so. We think the customers that are being added are more efficient. Customers like Encore, where it's kind of smaller apartment type living, more efficient building codes, that sort of thing. And we've seen the loss of some higher use commercial customers as well. But it's hard to pinpoint one thing specifically, but as far as we've been able to tell, it's mostly just improvements in efficiency and building codes with these new customers who are either building new or rehabbing old facilities.
Thank you. Mr. Heredia.
On the, so residential to businesses, we're saying a little under 3,000 businesses we have as far as electric. And then what's the consumption base? Do businesses have, of course, a larger consumption, but what's the percentage that the bar graph equals to?
Sure. Mayor, Councilmember Heredia. So as it's broken up, I think commercial sales account for right around half of the kilowatt hours that we sell. So like you said, even though there's only 2,000 to 2,500 commercial customers, that split is just about equal between our residential customers and our commercial customers. Yep.
Mayor, what I would suggest is that over time, appliance efficiency standards have greatly increased the efficiency of those appliances. So that energy efficiency rating of our stock of housing and the appliances within that housing back in 2007, 2008, the efficiency of those appliances are much lower. And so you've had developments like LED lighting, which, you know, an incandescent bulb puts off a lot of heat that ultimately has to get air conditioned, if you will, in the summertime. So as those incandescent bulbs have been eliminated and they've been replaced with compact fluorescents and LED lights, it's made those air conditioners work a lot less hard, and the air conditioners are a lot more efficient once they've been replaced. So I think that's really, if you could have the largest percentage of how our energy consumption per customer has declined, that's probably the biggest hit, so biggest factor.
I would guess going forward with all the residential, particularly the multifamily development in downtown in your service area, you're going to see increases in numbers of customers. But again, these aren't large industrial users, they're sometimes studio apartments. So that kind of makes sense. So that might be the direction you continue to go.
Yeah, the consumption per customer is likely to either stay flat or decrease over time.
On the natural gas side, we've continued to see strong growth in Magma. This is a very similar chart with total customer numbers by fiscal year in orange, residential customers in green, and then sales below in the bar charts. We've continued to see strong growth in Magma. We kind of monitor the gap between the number of subdivisions and lots that we have on contract versus how many service lines and meters we have in. That gap continues to stay the same, where the number of contracted homes that we have on contract still shows the ability to grow Magma significantly. And of course, there's a lot of vacant land out there. On the sales picture, we do see growth there. The reason you'll see it jumping up and down is purely due to weather. Natural gas is very sensitive to whether we have a cold or a warm winter. So these are the kind of raw numbers. If we weather correct them, you get a more steady growth line. But we're forecasting that growth is going to continue as Magma continues to grow over the next 5 years.
Just for those who might not know, Magma, is that natural gas outside of city limits?
Way outside.
Yeah, I mean.
Yes, sir. It's down in Pinal County.
Yeah.
And part of that system does reach the very southeastmost corner of the city limits where CMC Steel is at. It's on a separate piping system from the rest of the city of Mesa.
Thank you. Mr. Heredia.
Here's a question to, how far into Pinal County does it go to as far as boundaries?
What's our southernmost boundary, Tony?
So it goes basically to the town limits of Florence on the southeast corner. On the southwest corner, it's basically Hunt Highway and Arizona Farms Road, maybe a mile south of that, there's a development called Magic Ranch, which is the end of our service territory on that side.
So there's clearly a lot of vacant land out there. I don't think they're really to the infill type development phase yet. They're still expanding and growing out into what was more rural areas and becoming more suburban neighborhoods.
Sorry, does this include Johnson Ranch out there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
So our three cornerstones that we talked about earlier, safety, reliability, and efficiency, they align and correlate well with the city council's strategic priorities. And so the one that we wanted to focus on was community safety. And you can see we've got some metrics up there where we show different measures of the safety of our system, the safety of our employees. And we believe that a safe energy utility system, gas and electric, contributes to a safe community. And a reliable energy system as well contributes to a safe community. So a reliable electric utility makes sure that the street lights and the traffic signals stay operational. And there are emergency backups that the different transportation departments, our transportation department has on traffic signals, but we take that very seriously. We take it as an obligation to provide that service on an ongoing basis. So with that, we'll go to slide 8. And the one challenge that I'm going to focus on is the OMS, which stands for Outage Management System, Smart Energy, Smart Meters, and Smart Energy. So as a part of the conversion of our meters on both the electric, gas, and water side to smart meters, we're also able to implement a software system called Outage Management System. And this is a system that's going to greatly enhance our ability to identify what the cause of an outage is and what the way to remedy or fix that outage is. And then most importantly, it's going to allow us to collect that data in a semi-automatic way, consolidate it, and use the outage management system as a tool to more effectively and more accurately communicate with the stakeholders such as management, the city council members, and the mayor when you all get calls from your customers, your constituents, what's happening. We'll have outage more readily available, and it'll be more consistent across all the people that we communicate with. So when an outage happens, we're not going to be relying upon our customers calling in to know about the outage. We're going to have sensors out in the field that help identify the loss and the interruption of service to our customers, and we'll start dispatching our field personnel to investigate that outage before the customers probably start calling in. We'll also be able to have much better estimates of what it's going to take to restore service and how long it's going to take, and how some parts of our service area may get power restored sooner than others, which is just a natural phenomenon of how systems are built and engineered and operated. We'll have a better handle on that. So we'll be much better at communicating with our stakeholders, especially our customers, what's going on with the outage and when they can expect power to be restored.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Frank. So on the smart meters, smart energy, really sounds like a great system. What's the horizon? Is that something that we're embarking upon soon or next year, or what's the plan?
Candace can help me lay out the exact dates of the smart meter, but the outage management system is actually going to start without the benefit of the smart meters on the electric side, but we're hoping to have a go-live date for the outage management system before the summer season of next year. So we've chosen a vendor. We'll be coming to the council with that contract here in the next month or so, hopefully. And then the electric meter and the smart meter contract will also be coming forward in the next month or two as well, I believe.
So
Yeah,
both of these programs will be in this budget year?
Let Candace talk,
Okay.
we can talk specifically to that.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Duff, when it comes to smart meters, we are currently in negotiations with a vendor, and we hope to bring a contract to you when you come back from your summer break. So we're hoping when you guys come back in the end of August, at the latest, we hope the beginning of September, to come back with a contract. We're looking at a 1-year phase 1 implementation, which is 4 different areas in the city, 2 in the east and 2 in the west, in order to get everything set up. After that, it would go into a 3-year citywide deployment, so a total of 4 years to hit every customer, including our customers in the Magma area.
So we'll start seeing some of that conversion within this next year, the 21-22.
Correct, within the next
year.
fiscal year. Fiscal year
Yeah, fiscal year.
21-22 will be the first smart meter conversions.
So, Mayor and Council, one of the ideas we may be bringing to council is to help accelerate that, especially the cost to install, is we think that having smart meters for our customers is helps them also to be better consumers. And so one of the thoughts is we may accelerate this program in some of our low-income areas, especially in those areas where we've had to provide a tremendous amount of utility assistance over the last year. And that may be one of the areas that we could also fund through the rescue dollars, is putting these smart meters in, especially in some of the in the areas where we've had to provide the utility assistance. Because we think an informed customer is a smarter customer, and they can actually see their consumption more regularly and kind of see the ways to manage and try to save on that. And so we're going to explore some ideas on that area too.
Mr. Luna.
Thank you, Mayor. And actually, I was going to ask maybe Mr. Brady if Candace can do an update, and she just mentioned that she was. I think it's a great program.
yeah.
And not only does it affect utilities, it affects water, affects
Yes.
all the
Right.
utilities we're providing
Yes.
throughout our community.
Yes.
And I know even for the benefit of Mrs. Pillsbury, if you did a presentation of what that brings to your community.
Are we in the,
technology.
where are you with your
We are,
conversations?
right now, we have just done vendor selection, as in just last week. So we are just entering statement of work and contract negotiations. So I think it probably would be best when we come back after the summer break.
Right.
Because at that point, we'll have a better timeline for you.
Right.
On where we're gonna go, and we can also review those kind of initial phase 1.
Right.
Implementations on putting that in. So I think we'd have a better information, a better update for you if we
Yeah.
wait till after the summer.
No, I think this is a great approach in terms of how we look at our collecting data in terms of our utility uses as well as billing purposes.
Yep.
And then we probably maybe need to address the issues about, maybe we may not have people going out checking meters like we do now. So we might have to pivot in terms of what kind of, how we
Yeah.
direct the staff to do that.
And Mayor and Councilmember Luna, those have all been addressed. Those are all great
Right.
ideas, and they've all been addressed as part of this project. Again, it is really a 4-year, at this point, a 4-year, unless there's a way that we can expedite that. But it really is a 4-year project, and we'll be looking at all of our employees and phasing them into other aspects of the
Right.
jobs. While we won't need the meter readers after the 4 years, we still will need then additional service on those meters, because they are smart meters, so it is a different technology, it's a different learning process, and we still will need our employees.
Yeah, of course.
It'll just be doing a different role.
Different role, okay. Great.
Right, and I should say, as we go through this, as Mr. Brady mentioned, that this is collecting data not only just for the city, but it's collecting data for our customers.
Right.
So they'll actually be able to go into our portal and see their consumption on all of their utilities that they have with the city on an hourly basis. So hourly basis consumption. So if they have a leak in their irrigation,
Right.
they will actually be able to know that right away versus waiting for that big bill at the end of the month.
Or have an appliance that keeps running or something
Something
like
that
that.
keeps-
That's where Tim spends a lot of his time,
Right.
with water leaks and they
Right.
don't know it and they get a big
Right.
bill. And
Right. And, you know, I get constituents complain about, hey, I have a water leak and the city's charging me all this money, or they may not realize they have a water leak.
Right.
You know, a lot of winter visitors come in District 5 and then they leave, and then something happens during the summer, and then they get this incredible bill. So I'm sorry, Frank.
That's okay. It happens a lot with irrigation only
Yeah.
because you can't see it.
Right.
Right, so it's under the ground, and I just did it this weekend.
Right,
So found I
right.
had my own leak in my backyard.
right.
And couldn't see it, so, yeah, it happens all the time. But yeah, I would say we'd anticipate coming back at the end of August, beginning of September, and giving an update on the smart metering project.
Great, thank you so much.
Mr. Redia.
Yeah, was there a pilot program that we tested out smart
we did
meters?
a few, didn't we do in the central area?
Mayor and Councilmember Heredia, we didn't do a pilot or testing it out. At this point, we are not the first ones here. This is actually, smart metering has been tested and is working throughout the country. So the vendors that we were looking at are all experienced vendors. The technology is actually an experienced technology. So we're not worried about the technology or how it's going to work. It's really what was the best fit for Mesa and how we put that together. It really is more of a software implementation project. While we are going to convert all of the meters, at the end of the day, it's a software implementation project to make sure that all of the data works going back and forth. And that's what the phase 1 will entail. There won't be that many meters that we convert. We're not concerned about the meters collecting the data. We're concerned about making sure that we can integrate it with the systems that we have today, including our computer information system for billing.
We've been installing the right kind of meters.
We have,
I
we
think
are,
that's
we
the-
are
we have been putting them-
compatible.
We've been putting them all along now, the new meters and replacement meters have intended to be smart meters.
Sure.
So that when we decide on the software vendor, then that we don't have to go out and,
They can be converted
right, I think
to
that's
whatever.
maybe what we were speaking about
Yeah, with the
before.
exception of electric,
Yeah.
we do have, for our natural gas and water, we do have compatible meters where we won't have to replace the whole meter. We'll just be adding the data component to it.
Okay. And then on the question, sorry, the OMS, I know like SRP has a notification when an outage comes out. I get notification on my cell phone, an email. Is that for the residential part? You talked about, staff and internally, but residential, the ability to send out those types of messages when outages, especially electrical outages happen, to be able to communicate in that form with the system.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Heredia, so the outage management system, we've used SRP system as a benchmark. That's what we're trying to replicate with our system, and their system has changed and modified over time, so we've stayed in contact with them and their principals involved in that project. So yes, the stakeholder that ultimately matters in terms of this outage management system and our electric utility is the service to our customers. So we're building that system to be able to communicate effectively with our customers, things like text messages, letting them know that there's an update on our portal, that we've got new information about the outage, et cetera.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I just had a suggestion that when we come back after the summer break and do the presentation after we selected the vendor, in the presentation or at some time, whether the vendor or someone talks about how it's going to work as far as on the customer side. Your meter's gonna like this, you'll have a notification in this way, this is where you can find out, so that there's a comprehensive
Sure.
idea.
Mayor and Vice Mayor Duff, we actually have 2 different communication teams. So we have been working on this project for about 2.5 years already into it. And we do have 2 communication teams, one for internal communications to our employees, and for example, our meter readers and those customer service folks who will be impacted. But then also a communication team for our customers. When do we communicate, at what time, and what information? To make sure, because since it is a citywide deployment, we'll have some communication that will be very direct and distinct, and here's where the portal is, and here's how you see information. But we'll have to kind of roll that out, because we don't want to do it too soon to those folks who may be in year 3 or 4.
Thank you, perfect.
Thank you. Please proceed. Thank you,
So,
Candace.
Tony's going to delve into the challenges and opportunities that are presenting themselves right now in the renewable energy and sustainability market, as well as the challenges that are coming at us from what's happened in the California electric markets, which has a significant impact on us, and as well as what's going on with the Texas gas and petroleum industry, which also has an impact on the electric market. So, Tony?
Yeah, thank you. So one thing we just want to emphasize is that we're really living through a time of change in the energy industry. A lot of power plants, very large ones, have been retired, and a lot of renewables have been brought on in their place. And I think what we're seeing right now is the result of that change. What we saw in Texas in 2018, California last year, and Texas again this February, are some of the results of what's been happening. So we're going to be working very diligently to come up with new solutions to insulate our customers from those price shocks and really work to keep the reliability, safety, and economics of our energy supply portfolio. We are working with large-scale solar developers on 2 projects. that hopefully we can bring the second one to you soon. And we're in negotiations on the first one to diversify our power portfolio. Another thing we're looking at is the microgrid concept, which is a self-isolating, self-healing type of smaller portion of our grid that can be self-powered in the event of an emergency. And we're looking to leverage our natural gas infrastructure to do so. And lastly, we're working on customer side programs like solar with storage that our customers can help support our power supply. And also looking at ways to help reduce our customers' peak demand. So customer programs like a shade tree program, which provides shade on their house in summer, reducing their energy demand. And we're also offering renewable energy options to our customers. We came to you, I believe, last year with a program in our rate book now called the Renewable Energy Service Rider, where a customer is able to elect 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100% of their energy that they want covered with renewable energy. We'll go out on the market and purchase that energy for them. It's seamless. It adds a little bit to their bill, but they don't take on the risk of adding solar panels to their roof. And as Frank mentioned, we're looking to add communication with our customers as well. And the smart meter project is really going to help us with engaging our customers on understanding their energy use.
And as we...
Sorry, Frank, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you for you just pricked something in my brain. With the renewable energy, is there a chance to have any of the residents, I was thinking battery storage, have some options for residents or business to have, I know we don't do rebates in our utility, but maybe partner up with another company or something and then offer battery storage for customers. Is that an option or?
Yeah. Mayor, Councilmember Freeman, so we actually have two applicants to our solar net metering program right now who are proposing batteries. We're kind of looking at them to be a pilot program to understand how our customers are going to use it. We're looking at SRP as an example. Those batteries are going to be a real asset to us, so we're definitely interested in leveraging that because we're able to take energy away from peak times where purchases are very expensive and move them to inexpensive times.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're taking very seriously and we want to start encouraging. We're not quite sure the direction of the program, but we're taking them on as a pilot and looking to see where it goes.
I think that's great, an option for residential users, if you figure out how many kW you're using in your property or home and you can coordinate the battery storage for that and with the solar as well, and then takes the load off of the utility during a, like you say, peak or during some bad weather situation and you have some battery storage available.
To maximize the value of that battery storage with the customer-owned solar, and right now we have a cap on the maximum kW that a customer can add in solar because of the potential financial implications to our other customers. So, but as we look at things like storage and as we look at being able to offer a time of use or real-time pricing with those smart electrical meters, we can start contemplating lifting that cap on that size and also asking them to have storage because now we can maximize the value of a larger solar installation on a home with that storage if we can control when the battery gets energy put into it and when the energy gets taken out. If the energy gets taken out in the middle of the night to charge an electric vehicle, then it doesn't help us.
Yeah.
If the energy is released between 4 and 6 p.m., then it dramatically reduces our needs to go out and buy power when it's most expensive during the summertime. So there's a bunch of tools here that are in play that are going to allow us to be a lot more efficient and maximize the value of those types of resources that our customers are going to help us build.
Ultimately, it's going to come down to the cost of the battery for whoever's getting it.
Well, there's also the efficiency of a battery because right now, when you inject energy and you take it out, you lose about 10% of the energy that you put in. So it's not an energy efficiency tool.
Right.
It's making an intermittent energy resource like solar that produces its peak power at noon, but when we need it between 4 and 6. So you You take that energy that's produced at noon that would otherwise go to minimal use, and you're allowed to store it so that it can now be used between 4 and 6 p.m.
Good. Thank you for considering that.
Betcha. I think that's it, and I think the team's ready to go find a food truck for breakfast.
Some carne asada.
There's carne asada in the corner.
Quick question, Frank, that as downtown redevelops, and I think there's been questions raised by some of the new businesses moving in, do we have the capacity for more restaurants, more high electric consuming operations like shared workspace where you've got, lots of people in an old building with using devices? It seems like we've kind of in the past been told that we need to increase the capacity to provide electric service in our older downtown. Do you have, in order to do that, are we going to need to pass some bonds, or long-term, how do we anticipate responding to the growth that we're experiencing downtown?
Mayor, this is a great question, and we are undertaking a project, we're calling it the Downtown Utility Enhancement Plan. And in area like Main Street, where we have a lot of congestion, there's a lot of infrastructure that's already underground in the alleyways. How we sneak in some additional electrical infrastructure, and there is quite a engineering and technical challenge. But also the forecasting of what is going to be, what was an antique bookshop, and now it's going to be a restaurant or that workspace or whatever. That's quite a challenge to be able to anticipate and forecast with any accuracy of what's going to go in there, what their electrical energy requirements meet, what are their other utility requirements going to be, and when it's going to happen. And so we've got an interdisciplinary team within the city looking at that, but we're also going to be bringing in a consultant that has this experience where a downtown area that's going in through a renaissance, and they're reimagining what's happening in the downtown area, and where a vacant parking lot that's had nothing but streetlights on it for many, many years is now going to have a 5-6-story apartment dwelling on it. If I had put in the infrastructure 18 years ago when I started here to be able to serve that apartment building, it would have cost an inordinate amount of money. And it would have been money that would be with a stranded asset there. So we're looking at finding ways to put in the infrastructure, so if we can do it as a build it and they will come approach, where we can put some of the infrastructure in. We can find locations for pad mounted equipment. We can possibly put in empty conduits so that when those customers come along, we can put the cable and wire and we can connect it to the equipment that's needed to serve them. But that's an expensive undertaking, and currently we don't have bond authorizations for that. But a financing tool like obligations is really going to be, I think, a valuable way for us to meet those financial requirements in the future. But we've also got to do it in a way that keeps our costs down and our rates affordable.
So Mayor, it ties in with what we talked about last week.
Exactly, yeah.
Sometimes we don't have time to wait for, the typical approach for bonding, but the obligation, especially something like this, just makes a whole lot more sense. And so each year we'll evaluate that and bring those to council, those projects, identifying the need for the capital, but also making sure we manage it well within the rate impacts.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great job. Thank you. It was worth the wait.
Yeah.
Are we okay, council? Why don't we take a 5-minute recess, and we'll reconvene at, let's say 9:15, we'll reconvene. Thank you. All right, thank you. I'll go around. Thank you very much for allowing us that needed break. We'll continue with the budget presentations, and three of our favorite ladies, Community Services, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor. That's a great way to start a presentation.
You bet.
I appreciate it. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Ruth Giese, Department Director for Community Services. With me are Michelle Albanese and Mary Brandon of our office. We're going to go through our budget, of course. We have 3 enhancements. We're also going to provide some measures of success, some highlights, and of course, be available for questions. Community Services oversees the city's housing, community development, community engagement, animal control, and diversity programs. All of these divisions develop and implement programs that enhance the quality of life of our Mesa residents. I want to just take a quick moment to thank my team, all the program managers, and all the staff of Community Services. A majority of them worked in the office and were essential through the last year during COVID. And so they kept going, they kept coming in, and I really just am so thankful for such a wonderful team that I have.
Mayor, Ruth, can I just add, I know Councilmember Spilsbury and I had a chance to meet your team, and it was a great time to see all the people working there behind the scenes. So I can't remember all of their names, but there was quite a few of them. But thank you, they gave us a good orientation, and we appreciate all that they're doing and what you've done. 6 million, was it, or 5?
It'll be 7 million by
7
end of
million
day today.
There you go.
I know you were out there after, that was how many weeks? 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago? So they're very good at spending money over there.
Yes.
Or allocating it. They're not spending it, allocating.
Well, I remember I insulted Mary about a month or two ago when I said, I don't think you can get rid of this much money.
Yeah.
Because it's literally like getting
You
$1 million
motivated her,
a
Mayor.
month out the door.
Took the challenge.
And she told me that she clearly could. And I like my fellow council members, I took one of our Congress members on a tour of the facility where, and again, we've got a lot of people crammed into a room answering telephones in front of TV screens, passing out rental assistance and utility assistance. And so we recognize that these folks have really stepped up and done a lot during these unprecedented challenges. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and I do know Councilmember Luna and Vice Mayor Duff are planning to come as well and take a tour. So I appreciate all of you taking a few moments to see everything in action. So to our budget summary slide, the Community Services has a total budget of just over $28 million. 3.6 million of it supports our general fund work that includes animal control, community engagement, and the administration side of our housing and community development programs. And then 27 million of our budget is federal funding. In 2021, there was an increase in our budget. What we do is every year we carry over a substantial amount of money, this time 11.9 million, because our federal year is different than our city's fiscal year. So we're sort of in the middle of the federal year, and so that's why we carry over so much year to year, because of just the timing of it. Also, in addition, we did have a COVID-related funding, county cares money, ESG, CV money, and additional housing administration money to make that up. Our year-end estimate is just below the revised budget, but we do currently anticipate expending our full budget in full by year-end. I am now going to be asking Natalie Lewis to come up to give a cross-departmental strategy to address homelessness before I move on with the budget proposals.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. So for homelessness, the reason I wanted to come up here is there's a lot of work that goes on in this particular department. But homelessness is something that stretches across a lot of departments. And what we do as a city is, we start off with our big plan, and we do have a homeless strategic plan now, which has lots of different things that we're doing across the entire organization. And then we listened to the city council during your strategic planning and the priorities that you set. And one of them that you want to champion together and continue to build on is homelessness. So we use that kind of feedback, and you're hearing that in the different department updates to inform our budget and the recommendations that we bring to you. So we have included some additional resources in the budget this year that is very specific to the homeless program, and either reinforcing what we're already doing or supplementing and expanding programs that we see are really needed. And to the extent that we can, taking advantage of the federal dollars that are coming our way. So what we're doing in the budget this year is we are funding police security at the hotel for the Off the Streets program. This has been a great program and a really good partnership because, you know, at any given time, they can connect to the rest of the police department and bring in additional resources. And the police department has done an amazing job of being in that neighborhood and in that zone to make sure that things are staying safe for the program, and we can continue. We are also funding 3 new navigators for the courts. So they'll be very specific to the community court. And so the court, you know, and the prosecutor's office together working, they provide the incentive for people who are experiencing homelessness or in very low to moderate income or vulnerable housing. They provide them the support or the incentive to try to recover. The navigators help them navigate the system to get the services that they need and to help them in that recovery process, and also to report back to the court how they're doing so that the whole thing comes full circle and works well together. So we're really excited about having these 3 navigators that will really support the community court moving forward. The housing and community services department, we're adding a couple of positions, and I'm really excited about this. We're going to be adding a human service coordinator, and this person will basically be working on homeless projects. And they will also work with the new housing specialist, and Ruth will maybe go into this a little bit more. But this is going to help us with overall coordination of our interdepartmental team, connecting with all of the nonprofits that we're working with, managing the contracts that we have through our different funds and resources, and making sure that we're meeting all the documentation needs, and allowing Detective Aaron Rain to focus on the community safety side of things and the off the streets, and enabling the city manager's office to focus on policy and regional policy. But we'll all be working together.
Talking about herself.
So, I know.
She talks in the third person, but it's to help Natalie. So we want to give her some.
You know, and then the other thing that you will hear from Andrea Moore coming forward is that we're adding 4 new park rangers. And this is also really exciting. You guys know that team is a small but mighty team, and they have a lot of area to cover. So these 4 rangers are going to help us focus on homeless needs in some of the parks that we see more homeless activity in. And so they'll help us with urban camping, and they'll help us with different things, and they're going to connect with the police department for resources and needs and training, which is also really good. So I just wanted you to know that we're taking this as a cross-departmental function, and we're taking it very seriously to do what we can to improve the service and do more in this area.
And Mayor and Council, I appreciate Natalie because she's helping us from her position as city manager, really pull all this together across so the council can see the cross-departmental effort. We can't just put this in one department and be successful. It has to really be everybody participating. So that's, again, the additional stuff in the budget's, again, intended to kind of emphasize and be more resources in this area too.
Yeah, and a couple other budget-related items is that the police department is going to be bringing forward some what I call pole cams, because they're cameras on poles for our parks. They call it, I don't know, land-based surveillance, something or other platforms. And so those will be coming forward in the next few weeks. And you will also be hearing from this team again on May 6th, because we have some recommendations coming forward on emergency solutions grants and CDBG that are focused on coronavirus, and that will also supplement what we're trying to do for homelessness.
Thank you. Mr. Heredia. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Luna.
Mr. Luna.
Well, let's go Mr. Luna and then Mr. Heredia.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, thank you for doing this. I think this is a great recommendation. I think the pandemic really showed how challenging this was to deal with our homeless population. And the reality is that we have to work with interdepartmentally in order to achieve what we want to do as the city of Mesa. So I appreciate putting more money into security. The park rangers are essential as we begin to work with our homeless population and direct them to some of our facilities, but also working with our nonprofits, because that was a yeoman's effort to take care of that, working with our nonprofits close together to make sure that we were serving our community. So thank you for doing that. I mean, I want to thank all of you for your hard work during the pandemic and working with our communities that was very challenged. And you guys did an outstanding job, but can't do this forever. We need to get additional support as we continue to move forward. So absolutely, I'm going to be supportive of these new positions that are coming forward. So again, thank you. I do want to thank you, Natalie and Ruth and staff for all that you do for our community.
Thank you, Councilmember.
On the question on the positions, we've had have we had court navigators the last several years, right? Are these in addition, or that 3 are total?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. These are in addition, so I have a breakdown that we have a total of 7 navigators now within the city. 3 of them are dedicated to the community court. 3 of them are dedicated to the downtown area and also working with the tenant-based rental assistance program that we fund with Home Dollars. And then we have 1 lead for the Mesa Public Schools as well.
So 7 navigators per se, but they're different types of navigators. So these are court navigators through our community court that we're adding.
They're assigned to the.
They're assigned very specifically to that. In the past, to help you understand, we have borrowed navigators from different areas to make sure we had what we needed for the community court. What this does is stabilizes what we're doing in the rest of the community and focuses the court on the resources that they need.
Are these still contracted with groups like CBI
Yes.
or
Yes, sir.
Mark Center?
Yes,
Okay.
and they all work together.
They're not city employees.
They're not city employees.
They're contracted.
Yes.
Are these CBI or who's the vendor?
There are a combination of Community Bridges and also Mark Center, which is now COPA Community. And we have 2 of them at Paz de Cristo, and those of the 3 that are in the downtown area. The other thing that I would add to what Michelle explained is that the one who is and the couple that are in the downtown area are also trying to help citywide. So downtown is definitely a focus area. It has been a focus area. We want to make sure that it's safe and people want to be down there. But we also realize that we have homeless throughout our community, and there's urban camps and things like that. So even though we don't have someone specifically assigned to the eastern part of the city, we have the team that is supporting the eastern side of the city, and we're able to kind of shift and move as we need.
And then same question on park rangers, is this in addition to the current number?
Yes.
Because we have like 3 or 4.
Well, Andrea will cover that
Yeah.
in the next presentation,
Okay.
but yes, these are all.
In addition to?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I'm sorry, just to be clear, the 7 is the number we're going to have in terms of navigators, not what we currently have.
Correct.
How many do we have now and how many new we're adding?
So we currently have 4, we now have 7.
Okay.
We may even actually go to 8 because the library also had a navigator, and we're going to bring that back. So you'll hear that from Heather Wolf as we, I
We
think she's
haven't had
next
to
week.
use, probably, we're using it now? With the
So
library closed,
we
or-
canceled the contract during COVID because the library wasn't open, and so, but we need to bring it back.
Certainly when the library's open. we
When the
want to-
library reopens, that would be our plan.
That makes sense, and I just want to underscore what Natalie just said, which is that we are getting more reports on the far east side
Yeah.
of homeless encampments we need to somehow figure out who's going to drive out to the east side every now and then.
Well, that, PD's doing that. If you'll,
Yes.
when they had that discussion, remember, that is now part of the patrol officer's responsibility. So we can, they're managing that right now. But if they need
Yes.
assistance, I guess you're saying we can.
We can help with that too. So the police department is absolutely handling that, and they're working very closely with the transportation department, because the transportation department can help clean up those areas for, when we get people. And the whole idea, again, is lead with service, help them get connected, and hopefully they do. And some of them move on, they choose to move on, they're not ready. But those that can get connected, we try to get them into our system, in our process, so that we can continue to help them no matter where they are along their steps to recovery.
Thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
Yeah, just before we move off this topic, I just wanted to make the comment. I could probably just say ditto to Councilmember Luna, but this is such a huge, complicated issue, and I really, really appreciate the city and all of the work you guys have done, and the fact that you want to focus on the fact that each homeless person is a person, and they all have individual needs and challenges, and instead of treating them as one big group, you treat them as people. And I really love that, and I love all of the different ways you're trying to come at that. And so thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Spilsbury.
And I have a lot of, the issues in my district with the hotel and stuff, and I don't hear complaints. So you must be doing a really great job there.
That is
I've heard
thanks
really
to
good things.
our police department.
Yes, yeah, so I really
They
appreciate
are
what's being
worth
done there.
every penny.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and I concur with that, because our public safety has been amazing, especially on the east side, and working with the homeless population. Now, there's a church just east of Power on Main Street. Are you working with that group as well? I don't know if you're familiar with that, Natalie?
I know that Mesa United Way has connected with some churches in and around that area, and that they're working on creating something like an iHelp type of a system and service. So I know we do have some faith-based agencies that are interested in doing more, and are working with some of our partners. And so we are hearing about that and asking for proposals as we move forward in some of the federal funding.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if we, occasionally may send a navigator in that area to try to work with our homeless population. So I'll make sure I update you if something does happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. That's a great segue. We do have 3 budget enhancements that I wanted to go over. The first is a housing specialist. So adding a housing specialist, this position will be funded in our federal funding program. However, we really did feel that there was an additional need. We plan on getting additional vouchers. We want to make sure that we are responding to any additional rescue dollars that we receive. We anticipate that this position will work very closely with our human services coordinator position as well, and just making sure that we're flowing, getting the information we need, getting the resources we need citywide as well. And we'll be supporting and assisting not only new participants as they come in, but also supporting our human services area. The second position that Natalie had brought up was a human services coordinator. We are excited about this position. We feel that not only will it help to work interdepartmentally in our policies and strategies to address homelessness, but also really just serve as a resource for all city departments and internally for all our divisions as well. We anticipate that this position will work very closely with Operation Off the Streets, overseeing a PIT count that happens annually, working on regional homeless initiatives. There are a lot of regional meetings happening now in this area, and so we would have that person be the conduit for that. Also, finding ways to strengthen the ABC utility donation program, and again, serving as a resource for all human services activities. Councilmember Luna brought up our partners, our agencies. This person would be working directly with our partners as well, and just making sure that we're all working cohesively to address homelessness. I want to move on to some highlights in the community engagement area, but this will also include our enhancement request for animal control in our next slide. Our programs in engagement continued to be robust through the year, even though it might have been in a different way. But we did continue to have virtual neighborhood leader classes. We used our trivia as a way to just connect with folks that were at home. So that continued to be a robust program. We added some new little libraries in the communities. You know, people were outside more, out walking more. They were able to enjoy that as well. And we worked with our Mesa Fire and Medical area to help them with engagement for their vaccine sites, as well early on with the testing sites as well. So we did try to continue to serve as where we could through the year. In addition, as part, animal control is part of our community engagement division. We are proposing a new 3-year contract with our Arizona Humane Group. This is for our animal cruelty cases, as well as they also provide other services for us. For example, if there is animals, if a person passes away and there's no next of kin, they're able to rescue those animals. There's also situations if there's animals in an arrest, or if there's a hospitalization and the person cannot take care of them. So there's lots of different situations where this contract has been very beneficial. And for year one, we would be proposing an increase of $8,200 in the budget for the contract. And this contract has been going on since 2018, and since that time, 553 animals have been able to be rescued with this program. So, and I just want to say I've been really proud of the impact that our animal control team has made, especially this year. We continue to get the calls. We continue to be out there. We just found we provided a safe way for our animal control officers to provide service, but our service continued and was never disrupted, and they were just amazing this whole year. Also, I do want to acknowledge the team with the way they've been able to work collaboratively with our internal and external partners, especially with the city prosecutor's office, to bring cases to court with regard to those who mistreat animals. And so we've been able to enforce the law and work collaboratively with the prosecutor's office as well. So kudos to them.
Excuse me, Mr.
Quick question, do they provide spay and neuter services? Because sometimes in my district especially, we get these feral cat issues that folks are pretty hot coming to the council office, and so do they provide those types of services, or do we still have to seek a vendor?
Correct, Mayor, Councilmember Heredia. Spay and neuter programs are not provided internally by the city. We do work with our partners out in the region. I think because of COVID, they just stopped having their events, so I'm sure they're looking to get back. But we do work closely with county. We also work closely with our other nonprofits and to provide that information. Unfortunately, feral cats, that's not anything. I mean, I know we had programs where we would try to capture them, do a capture and release program. Hasn't really been happening, I think, because of COVID, but thank you for bringing that up, because I'm sure we'll start hearing about wanting to do that again.
Okay.
Thank you. And just briefly, a couple more slides to talk about our successes this year. In animal control, as I said, we did continue to provide 22,000 service calls since July. We also were able to go to police academy classes. It's always been really important for our new recruits to understand the role of animal control and the way that we work together with police. Also, our volunteer services continued throughout the year. We still had 9,800 volunteers help this past year. That included our Adopt a a grandparent program. The mayor, actually, this was one of the programs that he thought of early on to try and help our homebound seniors. And with that program, we were able to help 219 seniors. And just so you are aware, the seniors that did continue to need help towards the end of last year, we transitioned them and they are still adopted, but they're adopted through our agencies as well. Library volunteers continued with book drop-off once that started going. And then we even had 35 volunteers make cards for homebound seniors for Valentine's Day. So we tried to continue the programs throughout the year. For our Mesa residents served for all of our programs and community services, we continue to make a tremendous impact in Mesa. Total households served this past year, 121,000. Total investment to our residents, just over $2 million. And with
Sorry, say that again, 121,000 households served.
Yes.
That's a huge number.
Yes.
There's 500,000 people in the city of Mesa, far less I wonder, how many households do we have in the city of Mesa?
That's
I mean, I guess it just seems like that's a significant portion of the households in the city of Mesa. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm sorry, I have a keen eye for the obvious, but that's just that's a huge number. Yeah.
Okay. And Mayor, these households served, it might be duplicative services if they were counted in different programs as well. But yeah, this is a big impact.
You're right, Mayor. I think our utility billing is probably, what, less than 150, right, thousand? Right, Chris? You're nodding your head. I'm going to take his yes. Yeah. So I think this must be a lot of duplicate.
There must be some duplicate, yeah, if we have 150.
Because our utility billing is, I don't know, it's probably about 120, 130? 130,000 utility bills, those would be homes, so.
Okay. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you. Home emergency repair, the bullet point on that shows 28. Are those homes that you helped during this past year? 28 homes?
Yes.
And how many's in the queue, I mean, to help for emergency repair? I mean, it seems like you always have a list, right? And there's not enough money to go around.
Correct, Mayor and Council. We have completed to date 28 emergency repairs, so that can include homes that have like immediate type repairs, air conditioning, plumbing, and then also the mobile homes. That's the only program we can assist through for the emergency. We do have approximately 30 projects additionally that we're working on for emergency. So during COVID, it kind of slowed down a little bit, but it's starting to pick up again, and it's been very busy.
Do you have enough money allocated for the program?
I believe that we do for this next fiscal year. We still have some money in our budget to continue through this fiscal year, but we did get an increase for the 21-22 fiscal year.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
The next slide refers to our voucher programs and then our emergency rental and mortgage and utility assistance program. We, the first chart on the left, 1,780 vouchers were leased throughout the year, and that's $15 million in rent payments for 2020, and it's an average. Basically, we are assisting about 1,700 folks every month with lease payments through this program. The chart on the right gives you a snapshot of this past year on the impact that we made for some sort of assistance to folks during this past year, and it's $13.1 million that we've been able to assist residents with. And that's 3,000 households received assistance. And with that, we have concluded our presentation. If you have any additional questions.
Mayor, real quickly, I'll say, while we see this 13 million, there's more to come, and we're going to be, what did we decide, what day are we coming back? May 6th. May 6th, so we'll have additional programs that we need to come to council with additional federal dollars to spend in many of these same categories, so there's more to come.
So the ARP plan, the American Rescue Plan, I think May is when we're expecting to get that money, and we're expecting to get the guidance shortly before the money arrives. Is that what?
Right, but I'm speaking of additional CDBG, what did you cut, what's ESG? And
It's the Emergency Solutions Grant, COVID-related, as well as the Community Development Block Grant,
Yeah,
COVID-related.
those are separate than the American Rescue dollars do. So,
Okay.
so in addition to, yes, to your point, but what I was referring to is additional, for each year we get about, what did we say, $4 million or so, a typical year of CDBG, ESG.
Correct.
We're gonna get, we have another $6 million coming to the city that we're gonna need to spend. So, and remember we had the discussion, we were going through the list about human resources that we weren't able to fund a lot of those agencies. So we're going to come back and talk about how they have to be eligible under these programs, but more to come as far as addressing some of these same issues.
I'm not going to insult Mary by asking if she can spend that much. Okay. This is all wonderful. It just makes me a little bit nervous because what happens, 2 years from now after we've, these wonderful programs are up and running and the need is not going to be less, but the federal government money is not going to be there, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think, Mary, you're going to hear us talk a little bit more about pivoting a little bit from, some of it will continue to be these direct assistance things, but we're talking about job training dollars and doing some other, kind of like we talked about American Rescue dollars, more investment type things, or how do you create job skills? Maybe people have to pivot out of the jobs they were in before, maybe in different services or industries that are no longer around. And so we're trying to explore ways to bring ideas that we can get partners in the nonprofit or others or the county to work on those kinds of projects going forward. It'll be more of the same, but also we're kind of looking, to your point, Mayor, is how can we now help kind of create a sustainable resiliency in the community also?
I don't, Mr.
Just real quick, is there additional county and state dollars also coming in based on these plans?
There probably is to them, but we don't know of anything allocated to us.
Not
So,
to
I mean,
us, yeah.
I'm sure there is, I just don't know what their plans are for it.
Okay. Is there an opportunity to get like an ongoing accounting of all these funds that are coming?
Yes.
That are coming.
Well, that's what we're gonna do in May.
Oh, okay.
We'll do that in May, then we'll bring you all the different pots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vice Mayor.
So the 6 million that you're speaking of, this is in addition to the 50 that we expect? This is just for-
100.
Well, 50
Over
this
2
year
years.
and then
Yes,
2
yes.
years.
I'm just.
Okay, the
yes.
100
Yeah, this
total.
is
Okay.
different,
A
and
different
you'll hear
pot.
American Rescue Dollar, you'll hear that reference, but within that, there are multiple programs, and so, yeah. But this is specifically additional CDBG, ESG dollars supplementing on top of what our annual allocation has been. That's what we want to bring to you in May. The American Rescue will come, I think, soon after that, because we're supposed to, in 1st of May, I think I've been told, middle of May, have more guidance on that, and then we'll come back with that discussion also.
So the ESG, CDGB programs that'll utilize the 6 million, are we drawing from the existing applications that we had for our fiscal year, or are we doing a new outreach?
That's what we want to talk to you about, because we suggested that. I think council was interested in saying, we already have had a process where we've gone through and scored, and they've made applications. We weren't able to fund all of those agencies, so the thought we would come back to recommend to council is looking at maybe now picking some of those up, and the majority of them, I think, is what we ended up with. And then we're still going to have some additional dollars that we're going to come to council with some. So that'll take care of many of those that it was hard because they fell below the line, and we were going to look at those. So that's one of the first proposals we're going to come back to. But then there's additional dollars, and there we're trying to say, okay, maybe we ought to look at some programs that we haven't necessarily seen in the past, but we think are good ideas. I mean, Councilor Reddy has been talking to us a lot about job training opportunities, small business assistance, other things that maybe we could consider with the next round.
Mr. Luna.
Just something real quick as it relates to job training, and I'm really pleased that the mayor has put together this education roundtable. This would be a great opportunity to work together with our educational leaders for workforce development. So in partnering with these additional dollars and with the roundtable discussions, as we move forward as a community.
The caveat again is, remember, it's CDBG and we got to spend. And so we're going to come up with ideas and we have to get, one of the, Natalie's been working with the county and New Leaf and others. We're trying to create those coalitions now so that we can meet, is it September of what year is supposed to be spent?
2022.
2022, which in the world of federal funding is tomorrow, so it's, yeah.
So, yeah, and so thank you for saying that because it just reinforces we're heading in the exact right direction. But yes, exactly what Chris just said. Other categories we're going to be looking at is help for seniors, suicide prevention, and awareness, some housing and transitional housing types of things that feed the programs that we already have in the housing path to recovery, but also ones that are focused on women and women with children, so domestic violence types of shelters and helping those. What else am I missing?
We're looking at health services,
Health
possibly
services.
having
Mobile
mobile units.
health
Health services.
They have some guidelines in there, so
Yeah.
we're trying to do things that we haven't been
Yeah,
doing also.
And helping our fire department with mobile vaccination clinics so that we can go places where there's very special needs and they can't get out.
But we're going to bring all that
Back to you
guys in
in May.
Is this where we could work with a program that helps the kids coming out of foster care then?
So, yeah, that's one of the areas that we're talking about, but we're also working on a regional solution. And that whole conversation may be part of that package as well.
Great.
And there's good progress being made, and hopefully we'll be able to share more information about that soon, too.
We want to help everyone, but we also want to be impactful. So that's the hard thing, right? We don't want to spread the peanut butter too thin, but recognizing there's a diversity of needs. So at the same time, we're trying to figure out how to do that and have a significant impact in those areas. So council will bring those ideas to you, but I think as we do this, we always hesitate in being, sometimes we get it too thin, then we wonder why nothing really happens. So, but all these are that, we're just kind of giving you the preview of what we're going to talk about. So.
Just to answer my own question that I asked, again, this is wonderful, but I'm concerned about 3 years from now. To get to the point that, just underline the point you made a moment ago, Mr. Brady, I think it's to the extent we can use this money in legacy type, to have a lasting impact where 2 or 3 years from now, there's been an infrastructure or program or things established that will have an ongoing legacy even after these this
Right,
exceptional federal money.
That's why we like the
is
job
gone.
skills training, because we can help
Yeah.
someone with job skills, then that lasts a lifetime. So yes,
Right.
Mayor, and the rescue dollars certainly fit into that category of more long-term commitment, investments as I call them, into the program. So yeah, we'll take all that input and we'll bring that to council and have that discussion.
And I think that's why I want to focus on programs that are helping people stay out of homelessness so that we're not spending money on that end of it. We can catch it before they ever get to that point, so.
Amen. All right, thank you very much, ladies. Appreciate it. We are approaching the 10 o'clock hour, and I know there's Mr. Brady, you indicated that we might be able to stop at this point, and we'll.
Sustainability here.
Yeah, I think we all had we have
That's fine.
appointments.
We can just roll them into the next.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we thought. So that's.
Why don't we kind of, let's kind of generally plan on ending about 10 o'clock. All right, so thank you. So we'll move Parks and Rec and Development Services. I'm sorry. Item 1F is appointments to the East Mesa Education Workforce Development Roundtable and the Independent Commission on Compensation for elected officials. That requires a vote, I think. Okay.
Yes.
Is there a motion for approving 1F? Thank you, Mr. Luna. In a second, thank you, Mr. Freeman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, that wasn't a roll call, but obviously it was unanimous with the exception of Mr. Thompson. Next item on our agenda is, item 2, it's to acknowledge receipt of minutes of various boards and committees. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Mr. Luna and Ms. Spilsbury for the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Next item is current event summary, including meetings and conferences attended. Who would like to start? Mr. Luna.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, I convened a HELO meeting last week. We are going to have continued conversations on the digital divide. So we are working with the Information Technology Committee through the National League of Cities to talk about the digital divide, how it affects us nationally, but we're also going to talk about stories here in the city of Mesa. And so we have a lot to tell, specifically when we talk about our school districts. So that's a continuing conversation. So I'll be convening a meeting next week on that.
Great, thanks. I have a great story to share with you on that. So let's not forget to talk about it. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Real quickly, along Mesa Public Schools, the other day I attended a We Love Our Bus Drivers event, just to thank all the bus drivers for enduring through COVID. They were allocated to different means as far as what the school needed and different jobs, and now they're coming back for school, and we do appreciate them, so a shout out to them. I wanted to wish everybody a happy Earth Day. Today is Earth Day, so hug a tree, plant a tree, do something good for the environment and our Earth. And the state of the city was remarkable last night. I'll let the mayor talk about that.
Thank you. Mr. Heredia.
Real quick, me and David went to Adams Elementary yesterday on the Move Mesa, One Mesa, so we got in a workout yesterday morning, so thank you for everybody that's organizing that. We had firefighters, PD, and others.
And Chris Paul.
And Chris Paul, yeah. So great program there. Also, shout out, there was an event this past Saturday at Carriage Lane Park by Parks and Rec and Sustainability, the Mabel truck or trailer out there, so.
It's not a food truck.
It's not a food truck, right? It's a trailer.
It's arts and crafts.
So it was a really neat event. I think they're planting flowers, ladybugs, so to correspond with Earth Day and all the sustainability efforts. So thank you.
Thank you. Council, I just want to again thank folks for the various Earth Day activities that are going on today. I know members of the Mayor's Youth Committee are involved in several individual projects, including park cleanups and tree plantings. So I encourage everyone to do their part to be mindful of the importance of the earth today. Mr. Thompson and I, a couple of days ago, were out for a groundbreaking, and I'll mention it just because I thought it was so significant. This was the Elliott 202 groundbreaking, which is a 1 million square feet of industrial spec building, right? 1.5 million square foot buildings, which is kind of becoming commonplace now out on the Ray Road.
Mayor, remember when we thought the Apple building, the 1
Right.
million square feet, was something special? Now
Yes.
it's like, we just do that every day.
Right. If you've ever been inside a 1 million square foot building, I haven't, but I mean, I've been inside half, and it's you think the entire universe is in there. So again, we did 2 of those a couple of days ago, and it's just becoming commonplace. So the southeast part of Mesa, the 202 corridor, the Ray Road area just continues to grow at an amazing pace. And thank you for the mention about State of the City. I thought it not because of me, but I thought it did turn out really well. I'd want to thank Channel 11 for the great production value that they brought to it. My staff has been working on this nonstop for a long time, and so I want to thank city staff and council. You know, we're the stars of the show. So. Please encourage people to watch the State of the City. There's a lot of really good information in there that talks about what a great job our community has done to rise to the occasion over the past year and some important goals that we have. So there's good information in State of the City. I'd encourage you to share it on social media because I'm anxious for people to hear the messages that were included in that event last night. Thank you very much. Council, anything else you'd like to share with us? Mr. Brady, what does our schedule look like?
Mayor, we'll see you in a week, next Thursday. We'll have
Okay.
more budget discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Ms. Spilsbury and Mr. Freeman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.